We're going to start the meeting in a minute. We are streaming. Just so you know, your voice probably could be picked up on the mics. Okay, I will call to order the Southbury Board of Selectmen regular meeting September 5th, 2024 in room 205 to order at 7 p.m. Can we have the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First up is, did you want to make a motion, Jason, to move executive session E and F on any discussion? You want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to move executive session item E1 and item F on the agenda, any subsequent discussion after executive session to the end of the meeting.
Meaning after the first selectman's report.
Yes.
Correct? Do I have a second on that? Second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And it is moved. When we get there, just poke me to remind me. My memory's not what it used to be. Next up, first off, we have a presentation by Emergency Management Director Steve Schnell to bring the Board of Selectmen up to speed. It's been a rough couple weeks. Steve, if you'll come up and push that button to turn it green and give a brief to the Board of Selectmen and also the public what's going on.
Good evening. So before I get into this, I want to just reiterate the fact that I drew the short straw in having to come up here and do this presentation. If it wasn't for all the individuals that are in and around the town and our employees, I couldn't stand here to do this today. So our public works, our police department, our fire department, all of the volunteers that we've had, all of our town hall staff, everyone has really chipped in over the last 3 weeks to get us to where we're at right now with this presentation. So part of this presentation is going to be what we actually presented to FEMA and what we will be presenting to the next group of FEMA public assistance groups that will be coming in hopefully next week. We did add a little bit more of how that whole weather system developed that day. And also there are some photos in there from different areas in town, so we can go over that as well. So again, this came from our FEMA. We have 40 square miles. We have approximately 126 miles of municipal roadways. Of those roadways that are town owned, approximately 80% of those had some sort of damage, whether it was a blown out culvert or a complete closure due to the roadway being gone. So we experienced a historic rain event referred to as a 1,000-year storm. It's been reported parts of Southbury received 15 inches of rain at a rate of 3 inches per hour. This unpredicted and unprecedented rainfall event caused flash flooding throughout our community and a second flooding event, which is now believed to be released from a large amount of water from a geographical feature, the Larkin Bridle Trail. At 6:15 on August, or at 4:15 on August 18th, we had activated the Emergency Operations Center. Jeff and I had the conversation. We declared a state of emergency at that point. We were the first municipality to declare a state of emergency for this event, and immediately started taking actions to long-term capture the amount of data that we were going to need to move forward. On August 23rd, this board met and extended that state of emergency for an additional 30 days. That allows us to operate within that state of emergency for meetings, for getting additional personnel, additional resources, and the financial end of it in place for the next 30 days. On August 18th and 19th, the volunteer fire department and mutual aid agencies from across the state responded to the town of Southbury. They conducted 40 calls. That was our volunteer fire department. Of those 40 calls, 24 of those were actual water rescues, where we had people in the water, taking people out of their homes, their cars, that were either swept away or got stuck in there. We also had teams from the northwestern corner, Goshen, New Milford, with Swiftwater rescue teams, and the Connecticut Task Force 1, which is a Swiftwater urban search and rescue team that conducted numerous water rescues that evening as well. Our police department in those 2 days responded to over 250 calls. A lot of those were in conjunction with the fire department. Our public works crews were called in. We couldn't even keep track of where they were going. At the time, we know that they were all in, and they were all over town trying to mitigate as much as they could with the resources that they had at that time. So this map was actually taken from the Mount Washington Observatory website. For those that are in the back, Southbury sits right about here. That white section in there, in a 12-hour time period, the radar was showing 12 to 16 inches of rain in that white area is what fell. At the Stevenson Dam, between 12 p.m. on the 18th and approximately midnight, a little before midnight, the water level rose from 3 feet to over 20 feet in less than 10 hours. So the Emergency Management Office immediately started using Crisis Track, which is a program that we have used in Region 5 for numerous years. Myself and the fire marshal used it at our previous municipalities. So we were pretty well versed on how that whole process worked, how to get it set up, how to get everything into it. And we immediately started using that to capture data from residents and to document damage from our volunteers, whether it was roadways or culverts or debris, where that stuff was. When we get into the FEMA documentation, when we do this, they want pictures, they want GPS coordinates, they want to know how much it weighed, they want to know where it went, how we got it there, all that stuff. Crisis Track does that for us. So we spent the time, we loaded all of our information in there, so now all of these reports that are coming in, we can then run the report for FEMA and be able to hand it over to them. We initially pushed out a link that was going back to the event that we set up on Crisis Track. What ended up happening was the state started seeing all of that data coming in and called us and asked us what the heck we were doing. We explained that we were using the tools that we were provided. The state, approximately 6 months ago, had purchased a license for every municipality. That training for all the additional municipalities was scheduled to be in September and October. We pushed up that timeline, and they pushed it out to all the municipalities, I believe it was Tuesday. So that link changed. So what we see on the website now gets reported into the state, but all the documentation and everything, we see it here at the local level. The damage assessments are still ongoing. Every day we are out either going through the resident self-reports. Our public works teams are out there updating all of the culvert damage and the roadway damage, trying to get estimates to put them in there, because that will compile into one big report that we'll be able to give to FEMA when they come next week for the public assistance. Together with the First Selectman's Office and way too many people that I will forget everyone. So we had a lot of help. We are gathering all of the updates from all of our public safety agencies, the public works, the fire department, myself, trying to get all the data as much as we can to be able to put out daily updates with as much accurate information. And I say accurate because we all know Facebook is a wonderful tool, but unless we can validate that information, we don't want to put misinformation out. So we spent a lot of time as we were getting this data, vetting it before we pushed it out from the town. So we did that for the following 2 weeks. We're going to continue to push out updates as they come in. Obviously, the next big update will be when we're hopefully going to get a major disaster declaration out of DC. But as we get more agencies, more community help, we'll push those resources out as much as we can. We'll be updating our town website on a regular basis, but the actual e-blast that will come out for the storms, we're going to try and do that at least once a week moving forward. So all of these red dots represent somewhere on one of our town roadways that has some kind of damage. As I said before, we estimate about 80% of the infrastructure has some sort of damage, whether it's a shoulder, a complete roadway, a culvert, or guardrail damage. The shoulder's gone, the road is completely closed. That's what this map represents. This is our resident self-reporting map. The fire marshal and I spent the last 3 hours of our day today going through. We have over 600 resident self-reports of damage to their homes and property. And we have gone through every single one of them, and we will continue to go through them to make sure that we're able to either combine ones that were entered once or twice, so all of those records are compiled. We have offloaded all of them and provided the FEMA individual assistance folks that were here last week with all of that information. They were provided with binders with all of these maps, all of this information, and we'll get to that in a second. So the next few slides are some pictures from either that night on the 18th or early in the morning on the 19th. So this is the intersection of Main and Main. The amount of mud was approximately 8 inches through that entire intersection, which clogged the culvert. So the water would not drain until they went in and were able to clear it all. The basement of our library, obviously you can see on the corner up here, we estimate about 4.5 to 5 feet of water that was in the basement of the library. I was down there yesterday. The pictures don't get much better. Oldfield Road took a complete failure at the culvert section. So the water from the secondary flood off of the bridle trail is what came down and took out that entire roadway. That evening, we did have a water rescue of a vehicle that was sitting on top of this gas main as the water was running over. Again, somebody drove through the barricades that the volunteers had put up that night. We did that quite a few of that night. So these are just a few other examples of roadway damage. We have labels on all of them. As I said, we have over 200 spots in town that look like this. Old Waterbury Road is still shut down at this point. What you're looking at here is the water mains that go into Connecticut Water's new pumping facility. That section of roadway, those pipes were suspended in air. There was nothing supporting them at that point. That turned into a more of a severe issue, knowing that if we lost those water mains, that would directly affect the Heritage Village water supply. There was additional issues that evening, along with some well issues with Connecticut Water. First Selectman was dealing with Connecticut Water extensively that evening, and Monday and Tuesday, the following days, to make sure that this got some immediate action on their part. We've all seen these, we've seen a lot of pictures from the Larkin Bridle Trail. We were out there the following Wednesday or Thursday. Apologize, the days kind of mixed together. What you're seeing here is up on the top. That was one of our volunteers that we went out to go see exactly what had happened at that. So he stood up there. The other section is on the way on the other side. That wall of water is what affected Southford Road all the way down through the intersection of Main and Main, through the library and out onto Oldfield, and dissipated into down the river. That wall of water we estimate was approximately 80 to 100 feet behind there. And when the bridle trail let go, the reports that we got that night were that there was an 8-foot wall of water and debris that came all the way down 67 and took out that whole section, along with homes, driveways, businesses. So that's what caused the damage at the Community House tennis courts in this Route 67 intersection. George's Hill Road, the brook overflowed and took out the entire road. You'll see the other end of the road is approximately over here. We met early Tuesday morning with representatives from Eversource and Connecticut DOT. Eversource told us they had a plan to meet us out there about 11 o'clock in the morning. By the time we left here, made it down there, their foreman came over and said, "I got a plan." And I looked at him and I said, "Okay." He goes, I'll be done by this afternoon." Kind of looked at the fire marshal and I said, "I don't think that's happening." He called me at 4 o'clock and said power is back on. The following day, we had another meeting with them. While they were doing this, they had another team up on Southford Road. They created an access road and installed 9 telephone poles, ran the wires, and had power back on by Thursday. So I can't say enough about the team of Eversource linemen and crews that were out there, subcontractors. He told me they'd have power back on by the end of the week, and some of the sections that we knew were decimated by this event. So our public safety agencies, again, as I said at the beginning, the work that they've done, I can't even begin to tell you. All right. In addition to our normal scheduled hours, our police department staffed officers and dispatchers for additional hours over the first few days to ensure responses were provided and assistance was provided to residents of Southbury. It has come to our attention that some of our officers on their own time have gone to homes to help them dig out, help them clean up. Our volunteer fire department, in addition to all the storm responses in their normal call volume, they volunteered to come in and do the damage assessments. They were set up with iPads, their own phones. Our public works department actually they have predefined plow routes that we loaded into Crisis Track. It followed them around and they were able to document and get us all of that information to assist our public works crews with identifying where all the issues were. Our public works crews, we've all seen them. I wish Blake was here so we can bring him front and center as well. His leadership and the crews that are out there, they're doing temporary safety fixes at this point. A lot of these roadways are going to need permanent fixes, but we spent a lot of time in this room and with those folks and with Region 15, knowing that, and we'll get to that in a second, I'm jumping ahead, sorry. Resident self-reporting. I can't stress enough. You may not think it is anything, you may have a little bit of water in your basement, we need to know. It's not that you're putting in a claim with FEMA, but the extent of the damage helps everyone else in town with the individual assistance when FEMA's looking at the overall impact of this event. There's a direct link right on our website. I also put it up there for anybody in the public or anybody that's watching. There is a red banner on our website. You click on it. There's a button that says damage report. Please fill it out. even though the individual assistance folks from FEMA have come down and done an initial tour, they're still looking at all this data. They're still compiling it. We are sending it to them on a daily basis. We just sent off another 700-page document to them this morning. So the more information, and we keep hearing it. I heard it a dozen times last night. I heard at the Disaster Relief Center. We found out about another 3 businesses that were affected today that didn't report. Please, if you're listening to me, please report your damage. It's not just you, it's all of your neighbors, it's your fellow businesses. Please, I can't say it enough. Jeff, he says it all the time. We're trying to push our legislators to understand the true impact that is affecting everyone in this town. So as I was saying before, this weather event occurred 7 days before the first day of school. Our school district administration, the superintendent, the director of finance, they spent that first week in this room with us every morning, talking about road closures, bus transportation, drop-offs, community bus stops. You name it, it came up. We tried to vet the best possible way and whether it was safe to bring those kids on buses or have their parents drop them off at schools. That conversation, not always the way we wanted it to go. There was talk of delaying the opening of school. And again, our public works department, I'll put them up against anybody in the state, right? They worked their tails off. They made safe 30, 40 roads so that we can run almost full bus routes in less than 7 days. So by Friday before school started, Region 15 had their buses on the road doing test runs. All of those plans were, as I said, revised and then revised again, and there was backup plans to those plans. Our new police chief, welcome. He spent a lot of time with the region going over what the actual parking lots of the schools were going to look like, and if it didn't work, how they can shift on the fly. We reached out, we talked about road closures to get parents in and out of schools. We spent a lot of time figuring that out to make sure that the kids got to school safe. And August 27th, everyone went back to school. Again, as Jeff sits here today, he pushed it, and he had the confidence in the Public Works office and everything else to get schools back open. And we made every effort to do it, and it's a win. So last week, Thursday and Friday, we took the individual assistance teams along with the Connecticut Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, along with some dignitaries as they showed up, to approximately 50 homes. We tried to take them to homes that we knew were greatly affected or areas in town that were greatly affected. And what they do is they look at what the self-reporting, and then they go out and they verify. They're not looking for a financial value. They're not looking for anything else other than saying, this is what was reported and this is what we're seeing, and they document that, yes, we're getting accurate reports. I'll go back and stand on my soapbox for a second. Please let us know you had damage. It may not be major, it may not be a destroyed house, but any effect to your home, please let us know. So the public assistance teams and state DEMIS personnel are scheduled to be in town next week. The First Selectman's office has been diligently working on setting up binders with all of the documentation for that piece. That is all of our municipal roadways, bridges, culverts, debris, all of our facilities that were affected. So we anticipate those teams being in town 2 to 3 days so that we can essentially do the same tour we did with the individual assistance teams. So we have a couple of organizations here in town. The Southern Baptist Disaster Relief has been working to assist residents with getting stuff cleaned up out of their homes and their properties. The Southbury Women's Club has set up a disaster relief fund. The Southbury Needy Fund has stepped up. The Southbury Food Bank For those that don't know, all of their additional supplies were stored in the basement of the library. They ran a food drive and ended up with more food than they can actually store there, which is a good thing. And some of our retail establishments offered up storage space for them. So thank you to all of them. The American Red Cross, their disaster relief teams, their shelter operations teams. We did operate a shelter from Sunday through Thursday at the senior center. We didn't put it in the slide, but that night we took over 140 people by water out of Kettletown State Park and Jackson Cove. And they were brought to the town of Southbury and most of them we were able to find a way home, but we did have probably 30 or 40 individuals spend that first night with us. So in addition to all of our public safety agencies, our public works department, I can't give them enough accolades. The following town departments have been instrumental, and you guys can read them. Our first selectman's office, Southbury Fire Marshal, our finance office, our building department, the library staff who's been displaced. They're now working out of town hall. They have not missed a beat. They are there, they're offering help. Whatever we ask them to do, they're helping out. Our senior center staff, our social services, our IT office, the town assessor's office, the clerks. We could have just put all of town departments. And I gotta say, this is not, I get to be the one person to stand up here. We don't work in silos anymore. Everybody is a team. To everybody in the audience, I can tell you right now, the team that you have in Southbury is fantastic, and I would not want to work anywhere else. All right?
Is that it?
Yep.
So,
Sorry. I told you 10 minutes.
yes, yeah. What I saw here when everybody came together, even the library staff who pivoted into town hall setup, took care of the work that they could for the library, but also pivoted. We've done this during other disasters like the tornado, where the people that work in the library are helping with a lot of the data we need entered. When you talk about my staff in my office, unfortunately, my staff, Betsy has been through the tornado and COVID. So we learned a thing or two then, and Betsy's been instrumental in keeping us on track. I'll read this from the FEMA field coordinator. Now, these are people who have been at a lot of disasters. They're federal people, and they see a lot of disasters. And it's good morning, Team Southbury. A quick note of appreciation and admiration for our time together last week. It was a pleasure to be affiliated with such a dedicated team of professionals who are so committed to assisting their community with such a high level of empathy and expertise. Thank you for your generosity and welcoming spirit as the federal Blue Wave continues to support your efforts. The town of Southbury and the state of Connecticut are truly fortunate to have you all representing their interest in such challenging times. Given the strong sense of caring and concern that is so evident in Southbury, I know that you will be successful in restoring your beautiful community to the charming and historic town it is renowned for. Please let me know if I can be of any assistance at any time. Thank you, stay safe. And it's from William Schmidt, Community Assistance Field Coordinator, Interagency Recovery Coordination Branch, Recovery Division, FEMA 1 Region. To that point, FEMA is discussed or is going to, my understanding, use us as a case study for running a natural disaster. They were that impressed with what happened. So I'll open it up to Steve if there's any questions from the board about this. You may have questions.
I have a couple questions, but first off, I just want to thank you, emergency management team, everything you guys have done over the last couple of weeks. Obviously, the town has a long way to go, and there's a lot of people hurting and suffering, and a lot of people have lost a lot and lost everything. And we need to focus on that and see what we do going forward. But the work that's been done over the last couple of weeks, I think, has been tremendous. So just want to thank you personally. You've been ever present, and anyone I've spoken to in the community, a lot of residents have reached out to me, have been appreciative when they've had an opportunity, and you've been responsive to them and whatnot. And it's helpful just to, to hear from people from the town and what's going on. And obviously, our fire department has done an amazing job, fire marshal, police department, everyone did all the work, but I think the heroes of the last couple of weeks is our public works department. And, being in these EOC meetings and hearing what's going on and the work on a daily basis, it's just tremendous, the work that they've done and the work that Blake has done. So I just thank everyone for all their efforts and everything that's been accomplished, knowing that there's a lot more to do, but just as to where we are right now. On the FEMA assessment teams that come in and review, you said they've been to about 50 homes. Obviously, we have like 600 reports, and they keep coming in. Can you just explain for the public how that all works and how it's determined, like where they go, and if they're planning to go everywhere, if it's a sampling, like how that whole process comes to be?
So what those teams do is they come out and, yes, they take a sampling of all of them. And then the reports that come in from the self-reporting, they are saying, so they take that sample and they're saying, okay, the residents are reporting X, Y, and Z. They go out and they're looking at the verification of that. So a lot of that is to determine, one, are they reporting accurately? Two, should they be reporting more, or should they expect to see more? And they grade those by affected, minor, major, or destroyed. So what they wanted to see the worst ones that we can pull. So we spent hours going through those reports, trying to find the ones where the basements were completely flooded, ones that they had extensive residential damage. So the individual assistance teams look at residential buildings, dwellings, how it affected the living space of that residence. It's not their driveways, it's not the landscaping yet, it's none of that. It's how it affected the actual living space in that home. That's where, so we are keenly aware of the driveway issue in town. A lot of driveways are either destroyed or are not passable at this point. That will be on the tour coming up with the public assistance side and the waterways and culverts and showing all of that damage. Once they go through, so as we keep getting more of these reports, they're now saying, okay, we vetted, I think we did 60 homes in 2 days. So they're saying, okay, we went and looked at 60 homes, and what is being reported is accurate, and they have access to all of that information now. So so this morning I sent them another document with a PDF. Crisis Track creates a PDF file for every entry, along with all of the information that FEMA is looking for, the GPS coordinates, the address, the owner's information, whatever they're putting in there, and all of their photos, and any supporting documents that they're doing. So some residents have put in 5 entries. It combines all those together so that they get an accurate depiction of what happened to their property. All of that gets put into, and I hate to say a dollar amount, but that's really what it comes down to on the individual assistance side. And that's where our legislators come in to make the argument in DC to get that individual assessment for a major declaration. From the public assistance side, we have to meet a threshold within New Haven County and then the state of Connecticut for that determination to get a major disaster declaration. So it's 2 separate entities, and they're 2 completely different teams. Some of them have worked on both, some have only done individual assistance, some have only done public assistance. So when they come in, they say, okay, take us to, here's a list of everything, and the state is doing the same thing. So the DEMIS teams that came down, they walked in with reports from our crisis track and said, hey, we want to go see these houses. So they're looking through that information as well. Just because you had an inch of water and it didn't affect anything, it's still considered a minor effect when FEMA does their overall analysis of this. So, not to stand on the soapbox again, but please, if you're out there and you're listening and you haven't done it already, please go in and just report it. Let us know that there was damage. Let us know that whether it was swept up with a sponge or you used a shop vac for 15 days straight. Just let us know, because that's not only going to help you in the long run, it'll help your neighbors, it'll help the rest of the community get to that goal. I wish I could stand here and tell you I knew what that goal was. Unfortunately, was described as a sliding scale on the federal end. So it's up to their interpretation of where that goes, and that number can be adjusted.
So to the point on that, another way I constantly spoke with people who, we're all self-sufficient. I saw one place that probably had $30,000, $40,000 worth of damage. Not a problem, Jeff. I've got equipment. I can take care of this. I have neighbors who have more problems than this. You want to help your neighbor get assistance, report it. Even if you're a minor damage, because the ones who have the damage, if the federal government is going to open up money and assistance, we need all of the reporting. Kudos to those in the community who are out there and don't want to burden those with bigger problems, but to help the ones with the bigger problems, we need to report everything that's there. FEMA was amazed that we had iPads. We air freighted iPads in next day, outfitted them to record every single piece of debris that is coming in to the transfer station, with who brought it in, where it came from, and what was the debris, so that we can check this against this database to say, so-and-so at this address never reported this. Let's get a hold of them, get that information into this system so that we can. And the sliding scale, as it was put to me by Senator Blumenthal, there's not a dead set number for the individual assistance, which seems like disappointing. But what he said was it also gives him the ability to advocate for the number that's there. If they say they say it has to be above 5 million and it's 4,999,000, that's a line in the sand. It will give them the ability to advocate for the assistance. So that's why I want to be clear why that's a sliding scale and why there's not an exact number, that even our federal people don't know what that number is. They can't. And so I don't want that misinterpreted in the public.
Just on that point, so Senator Blumenthal was clear about that a couple of times now, that we need to reach a threshold, but we don't know exactly what that threshold is. Do you have any sense from the teams being here and whatnot, like where they are in their analysis and determination, and like where they're going, or how much time it might take to get to a point where they make that determination, and what it looks like for the individual homeowners in town?
So at this point, no. It does take a few weeks from what they told us. So it'll take a few weeks for them to compile all that data, because they're not only getting it from Southbury, they're getting it from Oxford, Seymour, all of the other municipalities that were affected by this event. The state compiles all of that data together, and then the governor makes the request for that major disaster declaration, along with our senators and our representatives. So they said it will take a couple of weeks for them to get all of that data, to go through it all and to vet all of that. And as we keep sending more reports, they're adding those into those, their databases as well. So our state teams are working in conjunction with the FEMA teams, and they are doing exactly what we did last week. They're doing it on the states, on the entire state. So they're compiling everything to be able to make one plea for the entire state, not just Southbury. I will tell you that Southbury is far ahead of the game as far as being able to give them the information right now. So we are constantly trying to work with our neighbors and show them how to get it done so that it moves that process along faster. It's much easier for us to essentially export to an Excel file and email it rather than taking it and handwriting it and trying to scan it and convert it and then send it to them, and then they are putting it into essentially the same system that we're using right now. So Crisis Track it's a fantastic tool. It does exactly what we need it to and then some, but it also puts us far ahead of the game when it comes to advocating for our residents to say, hey, give us the information, because we can just, press of a button, we're sending it to our state. And then the state can take that data and compile everything together in the same system. It doesn't have to be, this software doesn't talk to that software. Everything's talking to each other. And the state realized that, which is why they purchased the license for it. And unfortunately, this event hit before they did the full rollout. It's out now.
Holly, you have something?
I just wanted to reiterate a lot of what Jason said. You know, for us here on the Board of Selectmen, obviously, Betsy reaches out and Noreen reaches out, like we're there in a moment's notice, but it's nothing compared to what you guys are doing on the ground. We're here to support you and, you know, provide what's needed to be provided to ensure that you guys have the timeframes that you need in the state of emergency and the funding. But what I have seen around town has brought me to tears, seeing how hard our people are working, and I've never been prouder. I know how frustrating it is for folks. I wholeheartedly understand it. This was something nobody foresaw happening. The way that our town employees across the board at every level have stepped up, and then on top of it, how community members are stepping up and helping each other, because the very hard reality is that the programs that are in place to help people take a long time, and people don't have a long time. And what I see our police officers doing and our firefighters doing, and every person in this building and other buildings across town and working overtime, it's just really inspiring to me that this is just a group of really special people and a really special community that are doing everything that they can possibly do in this very hard time frame while we're in this kind of waiting period to get things done. So just a tremendous thank you, and I hope that the town employees and just every volunteer out there just understands how much they're appreciated and recognized.
Thank you.
So that's about as short as we can, we could have made it much, much longer.
We'll be here for hours.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks for what you're doing. It's been a rough couple of weeks. Again, I'll leave it that, you know, other employees had damage to their homes and were out working on town issues with this. It gets a little old, a little hard after seeing the amount of destruction and continuing to view it and work on it. So it's appreciate your efforts on that front. Okay, next up is public comment. If anybody would wish to make a public comment, please limit it to 2 minutes on the public comment.
Ed Edelson, 609B, Heritage Village. As former first selectman, I think I had my fair share of emergency responses, so I just wanted to convey my appreciation for the top-notch work done in response to the flooding of August 18th and 19th to First Selectman Manville, Public Works Director Leonard, Emergency Manager Schnell, and Chief of Police Grillo. I also want to recognize the work by the State Department of Transportation on our state roads. It's been pretty remarkable how fast they've gotten out. And I also appreciate the efforts of our federal legislators to facilitate the process of applying for federal assistance that Emergency Manager Schnell outlined. This all-of-government approach that we're seeing is the essence of our federalist form of government, and it's good to see everybody working effectively together. As noted by First Selectman Manville and Senator Blumenthal at a meeting here on the 26th, the concept of, quote, normal in weather is a thing of the past. We already know occasions once designated as 100 or 1,000-year events will become more, are being revised. These storms are being revised in how we look at them. Experts believe storms like what we saw last month will become more frequent and more severe in the future. We've seen the private sector or private sector industries like insurance and construction adapt to these new conditions. Our town, state, and federal government framework must do the same. With the right partnerships and the right advocacy, there's no reason why we can't have more resilient and sustainable infrastructure in Southbury and our surrounding towns. I think this needs to be a priority for all levels of government. And as we say, we need to build back better. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Kendra Zeppi, 173 Jeremy Swamp Road, Southbury. One picture that was not in the list of pictures of damage was the other end of the Larkin State Bridle Trail on Jeremy Swamp Road. That is gone. And what happened is that end of the trail fell into the woman across the street into her driveway, changing the whole water course of what was there, and also going over the large gas lines that are there. So we're really concerned about the issue. It's considered a state park, the Larkin State Bridle Trail, and we're wondering what the state, where is their responsibility with this? Has there been dialogue with the state regarding this? It's a state park run by Connecticut. So please, can you address that for me? Has there been any discussion about this?
We don't. It's not a policy to address public comments during the meeting. That's
Oh,
just not added to the
okay.
agenda.
Okay.
If you'd like to call my office, I can.
You can inform me and inform
I can
us.
talk to you.
Oh, okay, yeah, because we're really concerned about
Understand.
the weight of that trail and then coming into where the gas lines are too.
Lot going on.
So, thank you.
Is there any other public comment?
Michael Carrington, 76 Reservoir Road. I just want to echo the gratitude that I think we have for all levels of government, for Selectman Manville, emergency management, police, fire. Thank you for all your hard work. Also want to thank the number of residents, neighbors who have probably not been thanked enough for their efforts. A couple of them are in the room right now. I want to give Charlotte a thanks. And Southbury Women's Club, I know, has done a lot of other groups. So just wanted to say, you know, we're all in this together. I echo Holly's comments about feeling very proud to live in Southbury during this time. A couple other minor things, unrelated. Charter Revision Commission met last night for a public hearing. There were a lot of great ideas about our charter. That's a year-long process. It has nothing to do with the emergency, but it was good to hear those results. Want to remind people you can submit other things to Charter Revision in the future about how you want to see the structure of our government work, and we'll be voting on those next November. Also want to thank Greg Kuhn. I saw in the minutes or the materials he's going to be stepping down for the Board of Selectmen. Wanted to publicly thank Greg for his service. I guess that's about it.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Is there any other public comment? I'll slowly go to the third, and you can, if you'd like to make a, please. If I do the gavel 3 times, we're over. Sorry.
Okay. Dorothy Pierce, 278 Southford Road. I understand that FEMA's going to possibly help us with the residential damage, but there's so much damage to our yards. My yard, I lost 2 sheds, a greenhouse, all of my flowering trees, all of my fruit trees, and I have a bridge that extended from one side of my yard to the other that adjoined my property so that I was able to get over to my sheds, which had my lawn equipment and my snow removal equipment, and that's all gone. My yard was my sanctuary, and a lot of people in my neighborhood knew that, and it was just a beautiful place, and now it looks like a war zone. It looks like there's rubble, there's large rocks there. There's debris from 30 to 50-foot trees that came through. I was in my house. I know some of you know that. I was actually trapped in the house where the house was filling up with water. The water got to about 9 feet high. If you look at the calculation of the damage to my yard, it's probably just under 2 acres. It goes from the guardrail to all the way to the back of my tree line. My property goes a little bit further than that, it was the most frightening experience of my life. It felt like a movie because we were awoken at 1 o'clock in the morning and there was just water everywhere surrounding our house. I lost both my cars. I just got power back this morning. I still have no water. There's damage to my well. There's possible damage to my septic fields. And I know that we had spoken, Selectman Manville, about the stream changing and eroding a couple months ago, coming into the property and eroding our trees. It took down part of our retaining wall, and now it's much wider. It's not clear. It doesn't look like it's running as well. There's debris of these leftover trees. I had a root ball probably the size of a car dammed underneath my deck. I had both of my footings from my deck where we were standing out there trying to figure out how we were going to escape, not realizing the footings were missing on the deck, and if the deck had collapsed, I wouldn't be here to have this conversation. I just want to know what's going to be done by the town or the state to remove this debris. I had a state representative come up and say that they're not allowed to enter our property. They're not allowed to set foot in my driveway, so that I have to bring all this debris up to the driveway so they can remove it. I don't own an excavator, so I don't know who's going to take care of all of this debris that's laying around and these large rocks, and try to get us back on some normal path of having our properties restored. I know that from the bridle trail with Kathy's House of Chickens, the loss is just immeasurable. And I actually posted something on the Facebook because it appeared that 85% of this town didn't know that this, what I'll call second wave, came through that affected Southford Road and Community House Road. And it seemed like there was very little response to it for days. There was no response from administration until I posted. That's when the volunteers started coming. We had some volunteer firemen that came that were taking pictures for FEMA.
If you could call my office, we'll get with Steve and we'll talk about what is going on. We don't know yet, okay?
Okay, I just want to know what the plans are to just restore the properties.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Is there any other public comment? Come on up.
Michelle Sullivan, 314 Southford Road. I live just a few doors down from Dee, and got to witness the horror of what she experienced, as well as Chris, who's here as well. These are neighbors I didn't know before this event. And so I wanted to first express my gratitude for what it takes and my appreciation for what it takes to coordinate all of this from an administration level as well as execute. I understand that, unfortunately, too deeply from other personal experiences and professional experiences. I recognize that in a time of crisis, the most important thing for us is to come together as a community and make sure that we build on the relationships that exist and the strength across this town. And I think that from everything I'm hearing from Steve, that that effort has been meaningful, especially across this room. I think, and to second, the other thing is Eversource response above and beyond what any one of us could ever have expected from them, and restoring power in that time. Greatly appreciated, especially in the Southford Road group, who is pretty dead in the water. I think the problem that I've observed across this is the barrier to communication beyond this room. And so I know that it takes a lot to coordinate that, but in order to get the folks who are affected on the ground the information that they need to help recover, there's a short-term plan and there's a long-term plan. And what I've seen personally in the short term is that the information that's here and that's being communicated to FEMA and that's being discussed amongst yourselves is failing to get to the people on the ground who need that confidence at a time of major loss. And so the questions that I have are primarily around how do we find solution-oriented approaches that helps bridge that gap and help not only in this instance, but in future instances as well. And so the FEMA recovery has to be more transparent. I know there's not a lot of specifics and a lot of answers, but I think a lot of folks are at a point 3 weeks in, or almost 3 weeks in, feels like more than that, where they need to have some productive path forward, some way to move forward. And at this point, this is life-changing for a lot of us. I have personally no access to my property. I have 7 horses on my property, no way in and out. I'm still walking over a footbridge. And no end in sight, potentially months because of limitations of easements. And so what I'm going through, and I'm one of those people who has said my neighbors are going through so much, what I'm going through is little compared to people like Dee and Chris, but it's still important in the grand scheme of things. And for me, I would love to hear how we can help support the FEMA response and support this group so that we get the right outcome in terms of the major disaster.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? If you could, please try to get to 2 minutes.
It's going to be quick and to the point. All right, I'm Kathy, 602 Southford. My property is the one where the Larkin Bridle Trail came crashing down and took out everything that we worked so hard for, such as my livestock barn with all of my animals in it. At this point, I mean, I met some great people, never would have met my neighbors way down the street if this didn't happen, and we've been supporting each other on a daily basis. We just have a lot of questions that I need answered. Every direction that I turn asking who's going to help us clean up this mess, I get we cannot go on your private property. We cannot enter this. We cannot clean up anything 20 feet off the state. And it's absolutely disgusting. I don't have $1 million just hanging around because we have millions of dollars of damages to my house. And it traveled all the way down into their backyards. So we just need some answers as to who is going to help us, who is going to clean this mess up. I mean, as of right now, I asked for volunteers, but what do I do with all of this sand? And I have another concern too, because my well, we just got back today that it's contaminated. Is that sand contaminated? I found dead animals out there today. And I want to know if it's contaminated, because if it is, it's going all the way down 67. So we just need some answers, and I'm begging you guys to please help us with that.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Is there any other public comment? Don't be shy. Is there any other public comment? Okay, that wraps up that portion of our agenda. You have your announcements and correspondence in your packet. I'll move on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the consent agenda?
I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank Greg Kuhn for his service to the town of Southbury, for his service as a selectman these past few years. Prior to that, as a member of the Planning Commission and in other capacities, it's been a privilege serving with him. I think he's helped our town. He's been a great voice for our residents here on this body. His letter is self-explanatory as to his reasons, but I hope him well, wish him well, and look forward to contributions that he'll be able to make to the community in the future and working with him at that time. Thank you.
Holly, you have your hand on the button.
So much to say tonight. I completely agreed, and it's been a pleasure working with Greg. He always kind of puts out another perspective to throw around and to think about, and it's just, it's always been very respectful and enlightening. You know, maybe not even always seeing eye to eye, but it's always a great conversation, and that's always a good thing. I am pretty confident that we'll see him again in other areas in the future, but it's definitely been a pleasure to work with him.
I would also say I greatly appreciate Greg's contributions these last couple years. It was a pleasure to get to know him better, frankly. And I appreciate his willingness to consider all information when things are presented to us. I think there's a couple occasions where, you know, Greg probably changed his mind from his original stance on certain things. And I certainly wish him a speedy recovery as soon as possible, because I do look forward to his future contributions to the town. Thanks, Greg.
So I'd just like to say, yes, it's Greg would challenge even myself on issues, which is fine, and we have good discussions about to come to a good conclusion. I just want to say that, you know, I mean, I don't know if a lot of the public knows, but it's for health reasons due to a major car accident. And it's just one more example of how quickly, when we get caught up in our lives and the need to normalcy, how quickly that can change in a moment for people who are affected by the flood, to individuals who are affected by a motor vehicle accident or something in your health. And, you know, I think it's good to remind ourselves that, what's that story? It's about the journey, and I look forward to Greg coming back when he feels up to being healthy enough to do that and give his input, even if it's not on this board, just another spot. So thank you, Greg, for your contributions here. With that, I will call the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And it carries. Minutes of August 15th, August 19th, August 20 and 23rd. Could we take that as one motion to approve? Is there a second? Made and seconded. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, it carries. We're up to unfinished business, we have none. Are we gonna do when did we gonna do the agenda, the executive session after this? Okay, that's what we'll do. New business, motion to approve, transfer, and set town meeting date per the resolution, to approve a transfer and set town meeting date to appropriate money for continued emergency cleanup from flooding in the town. We appropriated $500,000. And this is just for the emergency to get done what we need to get done. And so we need an additional $505,000. Dan Colton is here if there's any questions on that.
I don't have questions on the specific amounts. Blake presented the memo and has all the items that we're looking to spend the money on.
Yep.
I'm just curious, at this point, are there any, like, is there any timing available or whatnot for some of this? Like, some of these deal with reopening roads.
Yes, some of this stuff, our Public Works Department is already getting through it, so we're just having the bills starting to roll in now, but they're already getting through most of the stuff. For example, the library, where we are, the initial contract to clean the basement of the library was $102,000, and Servpro's over there now. They've been there for about a week, 6 days a week, cleaning out the basement. and then the general road repairs, just to get the road shored up and safe for passability. Our guys have been out there and doing, like Steve said, like an incredible job, you know.
Thanks.
I just want to express my gratitude to you, Dan, and to the first selectman. There are not a lot of municipalities that just have $1 million to allocate the way that, it's such a hard balance. We are a very fiscally responsible town. We don't carry debt. We have money set aside for when things go wrong. But there is a really difficult balance between, we don't want to overtax our residents by millions of dollars for things that may or may not ever happen, but we have enough set aside to be able to move when we need to move. And I'm just really appreciative of the many years of work that have put us into a responsible place that we can do what we need to do to at least have a fast response and know that it's funded. So I thank you and your office and your team and the Board of Finance and everybody that's helped us to be in a position to spend money the way that we need to spend money, and realize that there is an art and a science to how we manage our budget. Thank you.
Yeah, we've had a good history of being well managed, and it comes from, Mr. Michaels, and, I think he's gonna be with us a little bit longer as far as being chair of the Board of Finance, and he set this town up to
Yeah.
be well-funded and well-managed for many years to come.
We have a thing, it's kind of ironic. This is called the Rainy Day Fund, and it poured. And it poured to the point where we have to tap, and we're gonna have to tap the Rainy Day Fund. Not that this is part of the resolution, but I just want to say that we've already calculating 91 million, the last I heard, of public damage to our roads and infrastructure.
Yeah, as of right now, we're just under $91 million, $90,800,000. I think Steve was in crisis track as of today. That's still going up as our public works team, our volunteer fire, and Steve goes out and evaluates these roads, and they're finding, every day something else.
And we haven't addressed the cost, the losses in the library, furnaces, chillers, things of this nature.
Yeah, our first estimate for the library is about $2.5 million.
So as we talk about this, I would, I look and say, I wonder how many municipalities should they have to lay out 91 or $100 million to pay for stuff to be hopefully reimbursed. You need to be careful about how many bonds you carry and what you do, so that in this state of emergency or in this situation, that you can have the ability to do, to be able to raise that much money to rebuild your infrastructure. And as Mr. Edelson pointed out earlier, our goal is going to be to rebuild it correctly. Nothing that we worked on in the last 9 years and built failed. So we need to build it correctly. And that's going to take more money than patching. Right now, we're on this money here. I tell people we are patching to get access. These are Band-Aids, and we are susceptible to problems should we get another major storm now or in the winter and spring. So we may need more if a storm comes. Not like the one we just had, but we're now susceptible to less than 500-year storms. And they occur, so that's my biggest concern going down the road and why we may be back here again. So we're not out of the woods, so people should understand that, and that's what keeps me up at night.
It's not lost on me. A lot of you guys might not know this, but I actually moved here from New Orleans. I moved to New Orleans after Katrina, and I spent a year just doing volunteer work. I lived in the lower 9th Ward. And eventually when it was time to leave and I wanted to own a home, I moved back to Connecticut. I have seen firsthand for many, many years how long it takes to rebuild a community, if at all. This is not lost on me. I spent a year of my life mudding and taping sheetrock in people's houses because I loved it. Seeing it here, I can't thank the town workers enough, but I also can't thank the community enough, because what they're doing for each other, that's just the heart of who we are as human beings and what sets us aside. And I understand how frustrating it is to not have the answers. One thing that I would just comment and ask is that if something's needed of the town, come to the town directly, not social media. I feel really strongly about that. I've said it many times, although, and I know I'm getting a little bit off this motion here, but it is ultimately about how funds are allocated. If something is needed, come to the town, because many of us may not be in the same social media groups or may not be permitted in the same social media groups. It needs to go through the correct channels, which is the reporting and all of those other things, so we can get where we need to be. So email us, call us, whatever it is, but social media is not the way to interact with town officials. It's just, if there's a frustration, bring it to this building.
So with that, do we have a motion?
Is the intention to have this town meeting right at our next Board of Selectmen meeting? Okay.
Yeah, before the
So I'd like to make the motion as presented with the modification of the date to September 19th.
Say that again?
Make the motion as presented, but with changing the date to September 19th.
Oh,
September, yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah.
September 19th.
September 19th, that's before the Board of Selectmen's meeting.
The Board of Finance is actually the 16th, and we'll be meeting at that point to do it as well.
So that's why, yeah.
That's why I got, yeah, the Board of Finance is the 16th, they have their meeting, so it's town meeting on the 19th, that's a correction. So we have a motion, do I have a second? Justin has seconded, any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And it carries.
Thanks, Dan.
First Selectmen's report, I'll go through this quickly, then we go to executive session. To the Board of Selectmen and hello Southbury residents. I would never have imagined I would be sharing news regarding a devastating flood that ravaged our community and turned Southbury into an emergency disaster area overnight. Southbury Emergency Management Director Stephen Schnell has been exemplary in his decision-making and leadership during the immense emergency operation. During the initial 2 weeks of the flood, town departments worked as a team, day and night, to set up our emergency operations, set up the damage reporting tool, bring in disaster relief resources, open an emergency shelter, create a temporary space in town for librarians to do their work and assist other departments, make temporary repairs to town roads and culverts to create access for as many roads as possible so that Region 15 schools could open their 24-25 school year on schedule. These efforts proved there are no silos within our departments. We are all in this together. The town set up a centralized emergency center flooding information webpage to have all flood-related resources and information accessible in one location. I urge citizens to go to the webpage for the most accurate and timely flood-related information. That link is www.southbury-ct.org/emergency center. The road closure map available there is updated as roads open and close. We have transitioned from daily flood updates to sharing updates once a week with any new information, going out on e-blast and social media in real time, all of which gets saved onto our website. Southbury is a resilient and a community that comes together in times of need, as evidenced by the abundance of community support in previous events such as the tornado and COVID. It will take time, but we will get through this together. For those who have been affected by the flood, know you are not alone. If you can't find the information you are looking for in our Emergency Center webpage, please call the First Selectman's office and we will help. We are looking forward to providing the public with more assistance once FEMA finishes their assessment. Southbury permit fees, to assist those who were impacted by the recent flooding event, the town of Southbury is waiving permit fees for our transfer station, building and land use fees for permits needed because of the flood damage. Please, we'll have it on our thing. Click here for additional information on our website. I just want to be clear, there was some question about waiving the fees. We have electronic permitting. Part of that process does not allow a permit to be created unless there's a payment, and that feeds down into our financial system. So we had to get the software modified by the vendor in order to get able to get around that. That's a check and balance to make sure we don't miss correctly billing for fees. That's why our fees, our permitting fees are up, is because of the system. So we had to get them to modify it. So that's why we had to do it. We will be reimbursing those who have had permits pulled due to flood damage, but we also have to track that. You have to understand we have to track that for the auditors to make sure everything is above board. So be patient with us. On September 5th, the roads around Main Street South and Route 172 in the exit 14 area of I-84 West were closed due to a gas main break. The belief is that 700 cubic feet of gas, natural gas, was released. Because of this, Eversource quickly shut down a large area for safety reasons. While many people were inconvenienced due to the road closure, public safety is paramount. The break was quickly repaired and traffic returned to usual. What was the blast zone, Steve?
3/4 of a mile in all directions.
So when people question why it happened, I did get questions from people, why it was evacuated, why I don't smell anything. A 3/4 of a mile potential blast area. So public safety is number one. And I just couldn't even believe we had a gas main leak on top of everything else. Last week, I was part of the Emergency Operations Center team who toured the damaged and flooded properties for FEMA's assessments. Other agencies represented were the Small Business Association and the Connecticut Division of Emergency Management, Homeland Security, Senator Murphy, Senator Blumenthal, Congresswoman Hayes were all in town to listen to town officials, residents, and view the damage so that they can advocate properly for us at the nation's capital. It was one thing to see those photos, but listening to homeowners and stories and seeing the devastation firsthand was heartbreaking. I am proud of Southbury's response to the flood. We were the first Connecticut town to declare an emergency disaster and first to use the state's damage reporting tool, Crisis Track, when residents in the town are self-reporting. Again, there was a complaint about, well, they wanted pictures and we couldn't upload, and they said something, Steve, and we said it won't take it. There's 700 pictures, and they said, oh. So they knew they couldn't upload. We sent in a Google Doc or something. Smarter than me people do. I urge everyone who had flood damage to self-report their damages, large or small, online at our website, and click on the link, Report Flood Damage. Some residents haven't reported their damage because of their damage is minimal. I've already covered that earlier in the evening. But please, by reporting, you're helping your neighbors who need the assistance to recover. So it's important. If you need help with the self-reporting process, we have employees who are happy to assist you in person at our town hall. Please see the information posted on the website or just stop in. A lot of that is based on our library people helping. I'm going to dispense with the Selectmen's report for now. I entertain a motion to move an executive session, inviting our town attorney, Tom Kalin, to be in it with us and possibly take action after we get out.
Make a motion for purposes of discussing strategy and negotiation with respect to pending litigation, Town of Southbury versus Alan Saltzman, and inviting Town Council Tom Kalin.
Do I have a second? Made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And we're going to go into executive session.
So moved.
Aye. And we are adjourned. Thank you.